feel like leadership is less trailblazing and more bushwhacking through chaos with a plastic spork? I get it. If you're overwhelmed, under resourced, and wondering when exactly you became the official fire putter outer, you're not alone. Leadership is wild, but you don't have to wander through it unprepared. Grab your copy of Leadership on the Rocks: How to Survive, Adapt, and Succeed in the Wilderness of Leadership. It's the ultimate survival guide for leaders who've been handed a title and a to do list, but not a compass. Because you can lead with clarity, courage, and purpose, even when it feels like you're herding cats in a hurricane. Pick it up wherever you buy books, and let's navigate this wilderness together.
But the truth is, this is such a powerful tool for leaders, for organizations, for culture builders, for client-based, referral-based. It's goodwill marketing. And the best part of the transaction, Bethany, is the person who walks away the most changed and filled with the most hope is the leader or the human being writing the notes, writing the handwritten notes.
This is the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, where we equip and empower leaders like you to thrive in and create harmony between your professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Bethany Rees, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking with Amy Daughters about how intentional communication builds real connection. Amy Wineland Daughters, award-winning author and keynote speaker, believes in a world where what makes us different is the very thing that connects us, instead of separating us. She brings that world to life by helping people reconnect to each other through the power of handwritten letters. She brings her wit, humor, and having written 580 handwritten letters to every single one of her Facebook friends to show you how you can find deep connections in some of the most unexpected places. Welcome to the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, Amy. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Bethany. I'm thrilled to be here.
Man, well, I'm excited to learn that you and I kind of run in similar circles deep in the heart of Texas. If we want to clap, for those of you that know that song. We both have lived in the metro area of Houston. And so how's the weather there? How you doing?
Well, we had the storms that you had after us. So we had the storms yesterday and the day before. So we've had, we're in the spring of our discontent, which that's a little
Absolutely.
strong. Yeah.
I understand. I'm in Arkansas, and we've just been having tornado warning after tornado warning. But in Houston, we had all those the hurricane season that we had to worry about. Well, I am so excited you're here to talk about communication. We know communication can make or break leadership, period, the end. If you cannot communicate and connect with your people, then you have major leadership issues and probably life issues too that'll affect marriage and everything else. And so, kind of as we talk about this, your niche, the thing that you love to do is handwritten letters. So what in the world inspired you to reconnect with this medium, the handwritten letter?
Right. And this is something I fell into. I was not walking through life saying, what about letter writing? And I was not twirling around in the field somewhere saying, I'd like to go on an inspirational journey. It just
Mhm.
this story just happened to me. And so I was basically minding my own business. I'm a writer, a freelance writer, and author. And I was doing my thing, and I got on Facebook one day, and I had worked in Texas at a summer camp that I'd spent my youth at in the 80s. And I'd met this girl in 1986. Her name was Dana. And we probably spent a total of 6 weeks together, but we both had huge personalities and we thought we were funny. And so I guess that, her name had always been in my head. So I sit down very innocently, I type her name in Facebook, and voila, there she is, Dana.
Mhm.
And so I friend request her because it means nothing. She accepts. I don't know if she remembers me or not. And I spend that great 5 minutes scrolling through her life and seeing what happened. And right away, I figure out she's overachieved in children. She has 5 kids, and the youngest is the only boy. And right away from her posts, I could tell that the boy's name was Parker, that he was battling cancer and it was
Mm.
serious because he was at St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis. And right
Yeah.
away, as a mom, as a person, as a human being, I was immediately, drawn into the story. And I kind of felt like I was overfeeling it a little bit. But she started asking for people to pray. And since I'm prayer is kind of my deal. So I started praying along. So I didn't say anything. I didn't comment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like, because I felt like that was disingenuous. Here I am, girl from tetherball from 30 years ago, you know? And so I start following along with their story. I become kind of invested in it. Um, and then he goes into remission. I'm like, oh, relief. So it kind of goes on the back burner. And then later that same year, the cancer comes back. They go back to
Oh.
St. Jude. I start, I don't know that I stop praying, but I start, that gets serious again. And then I sit down at my desk one Monday morning, and it's like a lightning bolt hit me in the head. And it wasn't like I was asking for anything, but it was like, you know what you're going to do? You're going to start writing Dana and Parker letters or notes and sending them to the Ronald McDonald House in Memphis. And I
Oh.
kind of thought, that's kind of crazy, but I'm going to go with it. And so I didn't have stamps. I didn't have any supplies for this project, but I was so invested. So I just started sending them these little notes. I'm supporting you. I'm praying for you. I hope you remember who I am. And so probably 10 to 12 weeks of this, I write the two of them. Of course, I don't hear anything back because she's fighting cancer with her son. And
Mm-hmm.
then, complete and utter devastation. And this has nothing to do with me, but Parker passes away at 15 years
Oh.
old. And so I send a condolence card to the Ronald McDonald House. And then I sit down and I'm like, so what else am I supposed to do? Because I felt so called to the, writing the letters until we got back home. And it was like mini lightning bolt. It was like, you know what you're gonna do? Just keep writing her. It's that simple. Only now, Bethany, I had to figure out where she actually lived because this is Facebook. Well, she lives in Louisiana. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to ask for her home address at this point. I mean, you can't do that. So I was like, well, I'd met her husband the summer before. I knew he was an attorney. So I just start writing her and I send the letters to his law office address because that makes a lot of sense,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And the whole time, so I write her every week after that. And the whole time I'm doing it, I'm thinking, this is irrational. Like, this girl has lost her son, but I could not stop myself from doing it. I was so compelled to do this that I just couldn't stop. And so about 4 months into it, if I didn't say that every week that I sat down, I didn't tell myself I was crazy, that I'm just a regular girl. That's what I did every week, but I could not stop. I think it was God. Everybody can frame it however they want to,
Mm-hmm.
and so then lo and behold, 4 months into it, I lived in Ohio at the time. I go out to my mailbox and it's my birthday, and there's a 10-page letter from Dana,
Wow.
handwritten letter. And in it, she talks about her grief, she talks about her kids. And she said at the end of the letter, I didn't even know I was going to say any of that, but I feel better for saying it. And this kicks off 2 years of Dana and I communicating exclusively through the US mail. No texts, no phone
Oh.
calls. And so these letters start passing through the mail, these weekly letters. She didn't feel like we had to respond to anything specifically because you don't even know
Mm-hmm.
when anyone's reading anything. It
Yeah.
creates this vacuum. And though I knew that she believed in God, I didn't know her specific religion. I didn't know her politics. I didn't know how she voted. I didn't know how she stood on any issue. And letter after letter, I didn't care because here was this woman who had opened up to me. I had opened to her. I had looked at my life from the outside in because the cards turned into letters. I wrote about
Mm-hmm.
my marriage. I wrote about my job. I wrote about my children. And we would say stuff like, oh, I've never told anybody this before, but I'm going to tell you because I know I can trust you, stranger at the other end of the mailbox. And it was
Yeah.
so profoundly moving that this intimate relationship could be created with this one girl. And it changed the way I looked at everything because she had opened up in a way. I learned about grief that I was like, and the way I framed it was, what if God could do this with this one girl, you know, in this list of 600 people who I've known from varying different degrees,
Mm-hmm.
what other untapped goodness is in this list? So
Yeah.
then I went all world bananagrams, and I said, I'm going to write all of them. And I put everybody's names in a box, and I bought stationery, and I got a journal, and I made up some rules. And I thought I would get about 50 letters in. But then when I got about 50 letters in, I was like, this is going to change the trajectory of the rest of my life. And so I wrote 580 letters in 18 months. And
Wow.
now I'm the girl who can't shut up about the power of handwritten notes.
Mm-hmm. I love it so much. And, thinking about that, think about how God just put Dana on your heart, and he's so good at that. There are so many people that we pass by daily that we don't look up and notice. And in leadership, the power of noticing, well, in life, not just leadership, the power of seeing people is so profound and so important. And oftentimes God will, it may be a fleeting thought, right? But we have got to pay attention and notice people and reach out, make that bid for connection. And I love the fact that you did that with a handwritten letter. I mean, those of us listening may be like, that's a little analog.
Right.
Writing a letter, because we say we're connected via online, email, all the things, but yet our hearts are feeling less connected than ever. And
And
so you have found a way to draw that heart in, to build that relationship through the power of the written word. And it's so beautiful.
And what you just said is so important because what, what the letters did, what I did not understand about the analog letters was people were going to be seen in a way that and feel valued and seen in a way that they weren't going to feel in any other arena because they were going to realize the amount of
Mhm.
time it took you and effort. And then you were going to have to say something. And the things you were going to say were going to make them feel seen. And what I
Yeah.
realized was this is a tool we have in our human toolkits. It's applicable to any place where there's human relationships at hand. And it is a perfect tool in leadership. You know, when I first started telling the story, when I wrote the book and started going on podcasts, and now I have a speech about it that's 3 speeches, I thought it was an inspirational story. But the truth is, this is such a powerful tool for leaders, for organizations, for culture
Hmm.
builders, for client based, referral based. You know, it's goodwill marketing. And the best part of the transaction, Bethany, is it the person who walks away the most changed and filled with the most hope is the leader or the human being writing the notes,
Yeah.
writing the handwritten notes.
If you're enjoying the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss a single episode. Also, be sure to rate the show. We hope to earn 5 stars in serving you in leadership, and through your ratings, it'll help us get the word out about what we do here at Leadership on the Rocks. Now, back to the show. It's so, so important. And it's such intentional communication. There's such an intention about that of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to focus on the other person. And, if you think about it, whenever you have a phone and you get a text message or see a message on any kind of social media, there's always this noise of scroll, swipe, I'll do all the things. But when you're physically holding a letter, a note, something that someone put pen to paper on, there's such an intentional action in that, such a thought behind it, a heart behind that of saying, I took time, right? We all say we're busy. I took the time to stop and put pen to paper to say, I see you, I notice you. And think about what that does to a leadership heart or just a human heart, right? Obviously, we talk mostly about leadership on this podcast, but the empathy involved, the noticing, the connection, the lack of selfishness in that, because so often we'll say, I'm too busy, I don't have time to do that. You have to stop and say, I'm going to stop everything else around me and focus just on this one person. It cuts through the modern noise, and I love it.
No, it does, and it blows people away because and it's tactile. You're holding in your hand something that I held in my hand that was intended
Mhm.
just for you. And when you put it in the format of that leadership, direct manager employee relationship, they know you're busy. They see you as
Mhm.
the leader as being busy, and they
Yeah.
hold that in their hand. And it can be. It doesn't have to be 600 letters, and it doesn't have to be letters. It can be notes and they say, this is how much I'm valued by my leader. And it could be as simple as saying, Bethany, we were in the meeting yesterday and you knocked it out of the park. Bethany, great idea. Bethany, I heard your mom is sick. We're just letting you know the team and I are thinking about you. You
Yeah.
know, Bethany, whatever. And you sign your name and they're like, oh my God, this is how much I matter to this organization, to this
Mhm.
leader. And you talk about things like employee engagement, retention, feeling appreciated and valued. It
Yeah.
is such a simple tool. And then literally for 15 minutes and some sincerity and a human heart, you're going to move the needle and you're going to be a better human being from doing it.
Mhm.
And you're going to see your workplace and the world around you, just like I saw all those people as real people after I wrote the letters. It's going to humanize everything
Yes.
around you.
Oh, that's so good. And what a better place to lead from than seeing, valuing, and hearing people, like connecting with people. Because in leadership, you're no longer leading tasks. Yes, there are tasks to be done, but you're leading people. And that is really what leadership is. It's all about that influence. But I want to touch point on something that I heard whenever you were talking about sending Dana these letters is obviously she was spending time with her son, right? Fighting the battle with cancer. And so she did write you back, and yet you continued. And I want to speak to the people who maybe like me, where affirmation is our love language, and oftentimes, we're people pleasers. We do things so that we get kudos back, and you continued to write and to encourage, and you weren't focused on yourself of I this is not about me getting something back, this is me trying to support and encourage you. And so I think that's an important note of, you may not know how that's turning the heart of the person that's receiving the letter. Now, you eventually found out with the 10-page letter that you received back from Dana, but we may not. That's not the point. The point is, God put you on my heart. I see you. I hear you. I value you. I'm going to spend the time writing you this note. It's not about me getting a kudos in return, of even a note saying, thank you for your note.
Right. Well, and that's one of the most powerful lessons from the Dear Dana part of the story and what I call the Facebook project is because we are uh, the culture, we're kind of engineered to look for a response because we can see when
Mm-hmm.
someone's read a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times a text, and then we wait and we feel even more isolated when we don't hear anything back. But but the way God put Dana on my heart, that helped me achieve not looking for a response there. But with the Facebook letters, it was so overwhelming, the amount of number that I lost I didn't look for a response anymore because I just couldn't keep up with it. But I learned one of the biggest takeaways from that project was I probably got a 70% return, like reply rate. But those 30% I didn't hear from, what I came to learn, it didn't mean that the letters didn't make a difference to those people. It just meant that they didn't respond. So back to your point,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to receive a response to know we made a difference.
Yeah.
And that's a super powerful thing. And the great thing about a
Mm-hmm.
handwritten note or letter, you're not asking for anything back. It's
Yeah.
non-intrusive. You're just giving a gift without an angle. And it's a gift that can be given at the workplace, in your personal life, but it's just a gift with no strings attached. And that's part of the power that it has. You know, we're in this
Absolutely.
we're in this world of artificial intelligence. This is emotional intelligence. And
Oh,
it highlights that. I mean, that the whole chat GPT things makes this thing even more off the chain powerful.
absolutely. And in thinking about that, I want to press into the faith aspect of this. If someone is a fleeting thought, it just crosses your brain so quickly. Oftentimes, they do need you to reach out and connect. And so I ask that you press into that. If you're driving on the road, if you're, sitting in a meeting and someone is a fleeting thought, do something, write it down so that you can go back and say, I need to press into that and just check in with that person. Check ins, if you are in a leadership position, if you're a friend, if you have coworkers, if anything, if you are anywhere around people, check in with others. It's so important. And again, that's the whole process of just saying, I see you. I,
Right.
I, I hear you and I value you. And so looking at that, let's take this to the leadership angle of, we work with a lot of people, and collaboration is where the workplace is, and it's good that we work together, we solve problems together, because I may not be able to solve a problem, but you're going to bring an idea to the table that's going to help me solve the problem that I'm dealing with the most, right? So when we're dealing with teams, fostering that trust, that team cohesion, that's often a struggle. And it's almost why we have a lot of conflict and drama in our places of work. And so think about our communication at work. So much of it is digital. It is emails, and or text. I can read any kind of tone I want to in a lot of those. And so when our digital communication is falling flat, what can leaders do? What kind of idea do you have that leaders can do to help build that trust and that connection, that team cohesion with handwritten letters or notes?
Right. And that's a great question. And, what I would recommend is that, you have a lunch once a month, like a handwritten lunch, and everyone gets a card and they write one sentence to someone else they work with, or two sentences, and then
Mm,
drop it off, where you kind of start to create a handwritten culture very intentionally by setting it up for people, setting up this is a lunch, and then it becomes like a lunch of gratification because what people are going to naturally do is thank people or recognize people for something they did, and then you talk about a team building event, and then you encourage them to sit and write the note. They pass by, they get lunch, they write the note, and then they deliver it to the person, and
Hmm.
that creates an entire different culture, or the beginnings of a handwritten culture, which is completely different because it is analog and it's about seeing across an organization, people being seen and valued, but with very specific, and the encouragement would be write something specific with one or two sentences to another team member or someone upwards or downwards in your
Hmm.
in your organizational chart.
I love that. And whenever we think about taking time to do handwritten notes, time seems like such a luxury, right? Because we're so busy. We have so many tasks. Our to-do lists are just exploding. We're spinning all those plates. We don't want them to drop. And yet, here you are. You just gave us an idea of leaders. Guess what? You so often can control. You can control schedules. You can control times. You can be very intentional in deciding this is what we're going to focus on. This is what's important. And so you have that power and authority so often to say, we're not going to focus on this right now. We're going to focus on this instead. And so setting up that intentional time, like the lunch, to write the handwritten letters, I just want to throw that out there to leaders of oftentimes have power and authority to help people focus on where it is that you want them to focus. And why not focus on connection and gratitude and affirmation and all of those things? Can you imagine the workplace culture like you were talking about if everybody knew that they were seen, heard, and valued and appreciated in different ways? Like that's going to change your entire organizational culture.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about the divisive culture we live in just as human beings, you know, and that's one thing I learned from the letter writing process was, as I reached out to each person individually and realized that they were living real and messy, beautiful lives like I was, and then I was connected to them for an absolute reason. Well, then all of a sudden I cared less, just like with
Mhm.
Dana, how people voted or what our differences were, and I focused
Yeah.
more on what connected us. But if you think about those people who come to work every day, they're living in that same divisive culture, and that carries over into the workplace. And
Hmm.
that I think that's part of the problem with employee engagement is that we've all lost sense of hope. Whether we're at work, at home, or whether we're at Costco or at a major retailer.
Yeah.
So this practice of encouraging handwritten notes fights back on a bunch of different levels because it can carry over to other parts of your life.
Absolutely. Think about if I'm being intentional in doing it at work, how much is that going to spill over to me coming home and intentionally thanking my husband, my children, and being a little more positive in that thing? But I want to dive into the practicality of this just a little bit because at work, we're not necessarily vulnerable, the emotional creatures, and it may not be the place for that. I understand. You're there to accomplish a task to get results, right? That's why you get a paycheck. But when it comes to connecting with others, do you have any advice for the leader of what's that first step? Because the examples that you have, like over time, you had a lot of emotional vulnerability of sharing things. But in the workplace, we don't want to just jump off the deep end and write a hand letter. That would not be appropriate where we're sharing all of these emotional things. That's not the place nor time. So can you help us put it in a framework of what's the first step for a leader who wants to write a handwritten note? Like what kind of words would we say for to connect and to somewhat be that emotionally vulnerable leader, but not be overly out there where okay, now that's weird.
Right. And I think that's where brevity comes into play. I mean, I
Mm.
think and I think the problem, part of, not the problem with my story, but one of the challenges in connecting this to the workplace is one, 600 letters, that's ridiculous. Two, the word letters, we don't need to write 2 pages of words to get this
Mhm.
done, especially from a leadership organizational standpoint. So I think sincerity and brevity, and you can
Mm.
still be professional. And if you think about if you were going to send an employee or a coworker an email, a short email just to say that you appreciate it, it's the same exact wording you would use, only you're just going to handwrite it into a card. If
Yeah.
you're going to email me and say, Amy, you did a great job in last week's meeting with so and such client, your thoughts were well presented, and we all appreciate you. Thank you, Bethany.
Perfect example. Yeah, I
And,
love it.
and you,
It's very
yeah,
specific feedback where it's not just a good job, because I feel like leaders do often say good job, well done. That is not specific, and that doesn't, those words don't carry meaning.
Right.
And the example that you just gave is so specific that it does carry meaning. And the fact that it was handwritten would elevate that.
Right. And it goes back to your, you said check in, and it's the same thing a leader can do. I keep a notebook by my desk because I still write people notes every day. And all you have to do is jot down when you've seen something. Or if it's somebody two levels below you, if you have 1,000 people working for you,
Hmm.
then have eyes and ears, have other
Yeah.
people. And then you write it down, say, Bethany, great job at the meeting. Bethany, innovation, a very specific idea, and then you don't have to write the note right then you have your notes. I write notes on Tuesdays. I write
Mhm.
notes every other Friday. I write notes 3 days a week. I've worked with so many people on this. I had this woman who led an organization of about 1,500 people, and she said she started doing it. She felt really vulnerable to your words doing it. She's like, how we talked about the same kind of things, and she said she started committing to one every Friday, and then she said she realized how it made her feel, and so she started doing it twice a week. And she said after about 6 months, she walked around the cubicle, rows, and these
Hmm.
people had the notes hanging up like a badge of honor in the cubicles. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I am moving the needle, and it's taking me 6 minutes to do it."
Hmm.
But she had to get over that whole hurdle of vulnerability and
Yeah.
find her sincerity and specificity, being very specific and being sincere and being brief.
I love that. And it does become like the badge of honor. And I love you mentioned like a skip level, right? Because oftentimes we may have, 3, 5, 10 people that are our direct reports. But, the higher you go in the organization, the more people that are going to be at, I don't want to say at the bottom because actually they're the ones that are leading the organization the most probably. But, the people that are not directly reporting to you, you still need to do that skip level of I see you, I notice you, you add value here, and thank you for whatever the specific thing was. But I also want to say, so I was in education really 20 years, but after maternity leaves and all that stuff, 18 is what I can count. So 18 years, I still have letters from students. I have all of these mementos because it just makes you feel like, you know what, I serve a purpose. And I love that so much that you talked about how they have it up. And you're going to notice that. It's going to change their heart, their attitude, all because you
Right.
see and value and notice them. It's amazing.
No, it is. And I talked to somebody who worked in a hospital organization, and he was like a, bottom level nurse, and the CEO, he had an idea and presented at a meeting, and the CEO of the hospital
Mhm.
group wrote him a handwritten note and said, "That's a great idea." It was very short. He read it to me. "That was a great idea. I can't wait to see what you do within our organization. This is just the beginning. Sincerely, CEO." And so I'm talking on a podcast with this guy. Now he's like leadership coach or something. He goes out of the back of the podcast and he pulls the note out from 10 years ago from his nightstand. He still
Yeah.
has it because that's how much it meant. Because that
Mhm.
guy took the effort to sit down, get a piece of paper, an envelope, write his thoughts down, sign his
Mhm.
name, and have it delivered in such a tactile, non intrusive. I think the only thing better for recognition is probably financial, the only thing that can touch it. And that's just my experience in talking
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again about it.
Man, it's so beautiful. So, as we kind of come to a close of this, of thinking about number one, handwritten letters, it's the most intentional kind of communication you can probably have. But it also builds real connection. Can you just help us? What are some key takeaways to see how intentional writing of notes, letters, intentional communication, handwritten communication is going to build that real connection?
Right. And it's about the amount of effort. They're going to immediately connect in a human way to the amount of effort it took on your part. They see you as a busy leader. They understand, they watch you. But when they have that in their hands, they're going to realize that you sat down and you took the time and you did something that is not done in normal life. You took the time to do something special just for them. And that's how valued, seen, and that's how much they mean to you and the organization.
It's so beautiful. All right, so now we've talked about how impactful that is, but let's talk about the opposite. What is one poor decision you would warn our leaders to avoid when it comes to communication? Like something you've seen leaders do and you're like, don't do that. Come on, man, you're better than that.
Right. Well, I'd say don't say too much. Don't say
Okay.
too much. And though I think, and I also think, don't get overly. personal. I do
Mhm.
think, and I've talked to a lot of leaders about, if there's a death in the family, it is very meaningful, just a short note that says, and now I'm talking to the personal component of this, saying, the team and I are thinking of you. We're sorry you lost your mother. But there's really
Yeah.
no reason to go beyond that because you don't want to be misconstrued,
Hmm.
in handwriting. And I think that's why
Yeah.
brevity is probably the best way forward. And I think you trust your sincerity and your humanness, but then keep it brief.
Yeah, I love that. That's such great advice. Keep it brief because I can talk and often overshare. And then not only my husband, but my kids are like, Mom, stop it. That's too much.
And my kids are always like, elevator pitch, Mom. You
Yeah.
forgot about the elevator pitch.
Oh, I love it. So, Amy, where can our listeners go to learn more about you, your work? Where can they go get the book, Dear Dana?
amydaughters.com has all the information. You can get the book on Amazon, but you can connect with me via my website, via email. My mailing address is on there. If you want to write me a letter, I'll write you
Wonderful.
back. But I love to collaborate with people. I love to hear people's stories about note writing. I'd love to, give further tips if anybody wants to connect with me. Because the truth is, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a small businesswoman, but I've got this incredible message that God gave me, and I just want to share it with as many people and discuss it with as many people as I can. So that's my entire intention.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing us back to the heart of what matters, connecting with people in a very real way of doing that through the handwritten word. I appreciate it so much. As so many podcasts are going to go cutting edge, and let's stay on the cutting edge of everything that's happening, newest strategy. There's tried and true things in leadership that really make a difference, and the handwritten word is one of them. And I thank you. Thank you for being, faithful in delivering that message and reminding us leaders and everyone else that what really matters, connecting with others.
Well, thank you.
All right. Guys, until next time, continue putting in the work of building your life and leadership on the rocks, the essential rocks. God bless. Remember, the most essential rock you can build your life and leadership on is the rock of Jesus Christ. Today's Bible verse comes from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 24. Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones.